Okay, let's unpack this. We are doing a deep dive today into one of the trickiest but also most fundamental aspects of global business tech. We're talking about multi-language accounting systems.
Hmm.
And we've been looking at the documentation for a really powerful demo environment, specifically the osFinancials 5 TurboCASH H53 multi-language demo.
That's right. And our mission really is to understand how a piece of software can tackle this huge conceptual challenge. Translating precise financial terms while holding on to a single core truth. It's not just swapping words, it's about making sure an entire general ledger, an entire chart of accounts can be viewed by anyone, anywhere, and feel totally native to them.
And the scale here is
Yep.
just,
No.
it's staggering. This isn't just, localizing for English and Spanish. The documentation confirms this environment supports 19 distinct language variants.
19, and that tells you right away, this isn't some afterthought feature, it's foundational.
Exactly. It forces you to ask the big question. How do you build a system that supports 19 different linguistic realities? Some written left to right, others right to left.
And they're all accessing the exact same set of accounts and transactions. That's the key insight.
Right. So let's start with the foundation, because before you translate a single word, you need that universal structure.
The technical core, from what the sources say, is built on a universal Firebird database template. Now, for those who might not know, Firebird is essentially a robust open source SQL database.
Okay, so a single standardized foundation.
Exactly. And the critical takeaway is that this structure ensures the financial data itself is stored identically no matter what language you're using as an interface.
And that consistency is what makes the whole thing work in the first place. It lets, say, a user in Germany and another in China log in and pull up a trial balance from the exact same numbers. That's fantastic for a global team.
And that whole user experience is decided right at the login screen. We saw those credential pairs, like English is E, German is G, Chinese is CC. A simple login and the entire interface just flips.
And here's where we get a really interesting programming puzzle. 18 of the languages are standard left to right, but the system also fully supports Arabic, which is right to left, or RTL.
Right, so the entire screen menus, buttons, data fields, it all has to mirror itself.
Which is a massive undertaking, and the documentation points out this fascinating little quirk. It says if you open the Arabic environment to switch back to a left-to-right language, you have to open it twice.
Yes.
Wait, why twice? If the goal is a seamless experience, doesn't that tiny hiccup suggest a point where the universal design sort of had to compromise?
It absolutely does. It's a little reminder that language isn't just a skin you can apply. It forces structural changes, and those changes can create friction when you try to move back to the sort of default framework. It's the cost of that deep localization.
Okay, so let's look at the actual data in this demo. The documentation splits the financial picture into two distinct sets of books. Why two?
It's to show the feature works across different stages of financial processing. So the first set is the core ledger setup. This one is all about manually prepared entries. And the key detail here is the status of the opening balances.
They were set at the end of 2025, but the docs label them as unposted. So for our listener, that means they're still in a draft state, right?
Precisely. They're transactions just waiting for that final approval before they become a prominent part of the ledger. It's the perfect place to show planning and prep.
And the second set?
The second set is the bank import set, and this is all about automated processes, like bank reconciliation.
Okay, and I'm guessing the balances here are different.
Yes, and their opening balances are already posted. They are locked in. Final. This division one set showing manual, pre-posting work, the other showing automated, final data proves the multi-language feature works across the whole spectrum.
And they made the data very real world. It says they used the bank import plugin to load detailed transactions for the first quarter of 2026. All the statements for the main bank account plus the credit card statement, all using the standard .afc file format.
And just to clarify that little technical point, the .ofc file is just the standard format that most major banks use to exchange data. So you have a complete working financial environment rich with transactions, but accessible in 19 different languages.
Which brings us to section 2. Moving beyond the technical scaffolding and into the linguistic architecture, how do you translate the very concepts that define the system?
This is where we look at the types table translations. These are the foundational definitions that categorize, who you're dealing with and what documents you're processing.
Okay, so take a simple concept like debtor, someone who owes you money. It's a simple word in English, but the translation has to carry specific weight everywhere else.
Exactly. We see French uses débiteur, German uses débiteur, Spanish uses deudor, but then you get to Mandarin and it becomes hu, jaburen. And the difference isn't just the sound, it's conceptual. The Chinese term really focuses on the person who owes the debt.
And you need that same precision for document types. An invoice has to be instantly recognizable.
It does, and it shifts from fattura in Italian to factura in Croatian, Czech, and Swedish. You can hear that common root. And then it totally diverges to zhu in Chinese. The financial meaning is constant, but the linguistic identity is completely local.
And this must apply to internal tools as well, like journal names. The general journal, for example.
Right, that has to be clearly labeled. We saw Greek using Enikikimurali, Dutch using Algemeen Journal, and Vietnamese using Nut Ki Chong. The fascinating thing here is just the sheer administrative work of making sure these 19 translations don't accidentally overlap with other journal types.
And the bank accounts show how critical that differentiation is. You have a basic current bank account, which is AGTC in Arabic and Lopenda bank reckoning in Afrikaans, but that's different from a savings bank account.
And the translation has to communicate that difference, that idea of non-current or interest-bearing funds. So Turkish uses tasarruf banka hesabı, while Estonian uses hoyupanga konto. That distinction has to be perfect across all 19 languages, so nobody confuses their accounts.
It's even the tiny little details that sell the whole experience. We're talking about placeholder terms that a user might only see when a field is blank.
Right, like empty account.
Right.
It becomes liras konto in German, cuenta vacía in Spanish, or no group, which is group yok in Turkish, and geen group in Afrikaans. Focusing on even those little UI details shows they were aiming for a fully immersive native experience.
Okay, now let's get into the deep architecture. The chart of accounts, the COA. This is the heart of the whole thing.
This is where translation moves beyond just language and into regulatory and customary compliance. And we can see this just by comparing two types of English. The original English terms versus the U.S. English adjusted terms.
Okay, let's unpack that. The original docs use current bank account. That's perfectly clear globally. But the U.S. English version changes it to checking account. A small change, but it's pure local financial culture.
But the really important shift is in the control accounts. The original English has debtor's control, a very standard global term. The U.S. English version adjusts this to accounts receivable debtors.
And that matters because accounts receivable is often the required term for formal financial reporting and tax submissions in the U.S. So it's not just translating, it's standardizing for that specific jurisdiction.
We see it again on the equity side. The general term drawings personal use becomes the more specific legal term owners draw personal use in the U.S. context. These little shifts show the software is adapting to national reporting rules.
So let's zoom out again. How are the main balance sheet sections, the big group headings, translated? English assets needs to be localized.
And it is. It's activa in German, Bates in Afrikaans, activos in Spanish, and akos in Greek. They all convey that same concept of resources owned, but they're the expected terms for financial statements in those places.
And same thing for liabilities, I assume.
Yeah.
That core concept of obligation.
Yep. We see passiva in Dutch, which reflects the passive side of the balance sheet. Swedish for Finland uses skulder, which is very direct. It means debts. Then you have o in Chinese and obveznosti in Slovenian. It's the entire financial framework translated.
To make this really relatable for everyone listening, let's zoom way in on a specific everyday line item, something from the personal expense accounts, like G5400000, which is dining out and takeaway.
This specific line shows the dedication to granular detail. It's one thing to translate salary, but translating a modern combined concept like dining out and takeaway, that takes nuance.
Let's follow that single account. In French, it's repas à l'extérieur et à emporter. German is Auswärtsessen und zum Mitnehmen.
In Chinese is Irrscher. Notice how each one uses a phrase to capture both eating at a place and getting food from a place.
Italian is mangiare fuori da sporto, and Croatian is jelovani I dostava. This isn't just high-level accounting. It's translating the reality of a person's monthly budget.
And that's the ultimate goal of COA localization. Every user, from a professional accountant to a small business owner, gets an environment that feels completely natural to them.
Which leads us right into the practical application. What's the international utility here in a real business context?
The foundational power is reporting flexibility. Because there's only one source of truth for the data, any financial report, income statement, ledger views is instantly available and consistent across all 19 languages. It's one financial truth, just seen through 19 different linguistic windows.
But it goes beyond just internal viewing, which is so important for international trade. You often have to communicate externally in your partner's language.
And this is where the document printing feature really shines. The system lets you print sales documents, invoices, quotes, and purchase documents in a language that's different from the system language you're using.
So if I'm a German company using the German interface, but I have a client in Slovenia, I can just automatically generate their invoice in Slovenian. How does it know?
It's smart. The language is driven by the preferred language setting you have stored for that debtor or creditor in their master file. It saves a huge amount of manual effort, prevents errors, and makes sure your international communication is professional and legally sound. That is the real so what of this feature.
The documentation points to two ideal scenarios where this becomes indispensable. The first is for multi-official language countries.
They cite South Africa as a perfect example. South Africa has 11 official languages. For a business there, compliance, reporting, communicating with staff, it can be a huge administrative mess.
Right. But if you can run your whole ledger in one system, but let your African-speaking auditor view the trial balance in their language, and your Zulu-speaking manager see reports in theirs, all at the same time.
That solves a massive internal communications and compliance headache with a single piece of software.
Yeah, and the second scenario?
International accounting and consolidation. Think of a subsidiary in Vietnam reporting up to a parent company in the Netherlands.
The local Vietnamese team can process everything daily, generate their local statements using the Vietnamese interface, ensuring full local compliance.
Exactly. While the Dutch parent company's team can log into the exact same data set, instantly pull the income statement, and see all the account descriptions in Dutch. Bridging that gap between local operations and global oversight without ever changing the underlying numbers, that's the holy grail of global enterprise accounting.
So if we step back, the key takeaway is the sophistication here. It's a system managing one universal financial truth, while offering these highly customized linguistic and regulatory layers on top. It's technological unification, but dressed in customized local attire.
That synthesis is the core concept. But let me leave you with a provocative thought that really comes from diving into these language comparisons. Consider the specific translation of retained earnings.
I remember seeing nuance there.
Right. In the Italian chart of accounts, it's utili non distribuiti, which literally means undistributed profits. It emphasizes the state, the profits that have not been paid out.
Okay.
But in the German COA, the translation is Gewinnvortrag, which translates to profit carry forward. This emphasizes the movement of that profit into the next period.
So one focuses on status, the other on flow.
Exactly. Even though the number is identical, the linguistic terms used to describe these foundational concepts highlight deep cultural and regulatory differences. So the question is, if these 19 contexts describe the same money using fundamentally different philosophical terms, how might that inherent linguistic difference influence the way different countries interpret the risk, performance, and integrity of the final report?
A fascinating angle. That language doesn't just describe money, it actually dictates how we think about it. Thank you for guiding us through this incredibly detailed deep dive.